Happy good morning. This is Brianne from Zenful Mindings. And this morning I have been doing a lot of like introspection and journaling and sorting through some things that I guess I hadn't realized had really been weighing on my heart and my spirit. And so it brought me to some really clear places this morning that I wanted to share, and I think are worthy for us to all give a little time and thought to. And one of the things that I concluded or realized was that I very rarely turn my own independent gaze on myself to see me, right? And I think that that is much different than how we think others are seeing us or how we would like to see ourselves, because I think that those are all separate things. So there's this idea that we assume or presume that this is how people see us or judge us, and then we in turn take their perception and adopt it as our own inner perception. And that's not our own independence, right? And then there's this idea of how we would like to be, things that maybe we're working towards, or how we want other people to see us, or how we want to see ourselves. And those maybe are aspirations or things that maybe we can't quite see as a reality yet. But when we genuinely turn our gaze back on ourselves, right? And that's a full on like witnessing of who we are. And I think that that's all of the things, right? It's the good things, it's the flawed things, it's the whimsical things and the failed things and the strong things and the nitpicky things. It's all of the things. It's the shadow things, it's the light things, it's the gamut, the whole gamut. And I think it's really hard for us to look at ourselves like that for a long extended time, right? And I'm not sure why that's so uncomfortable. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know if that's something that we've been taught or something that we adapt or adopt as a protection mechanism, or if it's just a way that we survive in this culture, or is it just because of all of this distraction that's out here? And I'm not sure that the why is really honestly relevant when I think about it. But what is important is the doing it, is the practicing it, is the stopping these ego-driven narratives that these other things are more important or more worthy of our time, rather than seeing ourselves, right? And I think that this happens in a lot of different ways, the turning our gaze back on ourselves, because it's not always pretty, but sometimes it's way more beautiful than we give ourselves credit for, right? I was thinking about how sometimes we don't realize that we are worthy of our own time. I've talked about before how we are constantly caught up in these roles in our lives and our to-do lists, because we deem those worthy of our time because they are productive, right? But we are very quick to eliminate self-care and self-work and self-gazing because we don't deem them necessarily worth our time, because there's not this tangible result, right? There's not something in our external world that validates the time for that. But there is, I guess, what we can benefit from seeing that long-term effect from it, right? The long term, that we are worth our own time, and we are worth just as much time as we give to our children and to our friends and to our family and to our coworkers and our jobs and our yards. There is a ridiculous amount of effort that goes into yard work. It's a whole other thing. But what if we invested that same amount of energy into seeing ourselves, into cultivating ourselves, right? What if we spun that around? Revelation. Self-work over yard work. unless you're like planting something beautiful. And I think that's kind of both at the same time. Um, yeah, that's great. I kind of want to leave this here, self-work over yard work, but I have a little bit more to say. What I want to wrap this up with is that if we can identify where we are leaking this energy into other things, can we then not, do this abrupt stop, because I think that's a practice, but can we see that we are then kind of coaxing ourselves into performing something, right? So if we are assuming or perceiving that somebody sees us a certain way, or we want somebody to see us a certain way, can we see that regardless of how we're acting, we are being motivated to act by something that is not of ourselves? We are being motivated by this external source or this ego narrative, right, of how we want to be seen. Whereas if we just are being something, right, if we are, instead of wanting to be seen as compassionate, instead of wanting to be seen as kind, can we just be kind? It's like eliminating that middleman, right? Let's just be what we are, what we absolutely truly are, right? Which I guess maybe it just is harder in practice because we are so worried still about all of these things, and it takes guts and bravery to try to mute that and to still see ourselves as worthy of our time and our energy. But if we can invest our energy in ourselves, I think that just being those things is a lot easier, right? It's a lot easier to be patient, to be loving, to help somebody when you see that they are in need, and also to receive those things, right? It is very hard to receive things when we find ourselves unworthy. So if we can invest a little time, a little more time maybe, in ourselves and start showing ourselves that we are worthy of showing up for ourselves, I think that's like a real ticket to something. So I will leave this there, but also still self-work over yard work. Have a great day. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment below, and show up for yourself and just be.